Hey friends, and welcome back to A Simple Truth. Now, last time we looked at dry bones, judgment on Gog. We saw Israel's restoration and a new covenant, saw what that would look like. We are continuing through Ezekiel. Now, last time that put us up to Ezekiel 39, or up to 40, I should say, because today is 40 through 42. So 40 through 42 and beyond has us looking at a new city and a new temple. Specifically today, gateways. We're going to look at some chambers, some of the different dimensions of it, and then we'll talk about this city and talk about the temple very, very briefly. So all of that in Ezekiel 40 through 42. So chapter 40. In the 25th year of our captivity, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was captured, on the very same day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he took me there. In the visions of God, he took me into the land of Israel, and set me on a very high mountain. On it, towards the south, was something like the structure of a city. He took me there, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of bronze. He had a line of flax and a measuring rod in his hand, and he stood in the gateway. And the man said to me, Son of man, look with your eyes and hear with your ears, and fix your mind on everything that I show you. For you were brought here so that I might show them to you. Declare to the house of Israel everything you see. Now there was a wall all around the outside of the temple, and in the man's hand was a measuring rod, 6 cubits long, each being a cubit and a handbreadth. And he measured the width of the wall structure, 1 rod, and the height 1 rod. Then he went to the gateway, which faced east, and he went up its stairs and measured the threshold of the gateway, which was 1 rod wide, and the other threshold, which was 1 rod wide. Each gate chamber was 1 rod long and 1 rod wide. Between the gate chambers was a space of 5 cubits, and the threshold of the gateway by the vestibule of the inside gate was 1 rod. He also measured the vestibule of the inside gate, 1 rod. Then he measured the vestibule of the gateway, 8 cubits, and the gate posts, 2 cubits. The vestibule of the gate was on the inside. In the eastern gateway there were 3 gate chambers on one side and 3 on the other. The 3 were all the same size. Also, the gate posts were of the same size on this side and that side. He measured the width of the entrance to the gateway, 10 cubits, and the length of the gate, 13 cubits. There was a space in front of the gate chambers, 1 cubit on this side and 1 cubit on that side. The gate chambers were 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side. Then he measured the gateway from the roof of one gate chamber to the roof of the other, and the width was 25 cubits as door faces door. He measured the gate posts, 60 cubits high, and the court all around the gateway extended to the gate posts. From the front of the entrance gate to the front of the vestibule of the inner gate was 50 cubits. There were beveled window frames in the gate chambers and in the intervening archways on the inside of the gateway all around, and likewise in the vestibules. There were windows all around on the inside, and on each gate post were palm trees. Then he brought me into the outer court, and there were chambers and a pavement made all around the court. 30 chambers faced the pavement. The pavement was by the side of the gateways, corresponding to the length of the gateways. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the width from the front of the lower gateway to the front of the inner court exterior, 100 cubits towards the east and the north. On the outer court was also a gateway facing north, and he measured its length and its width. Its gate chambers, 3 on this side and 3 on that side, its gate posts and its archways had the same measurements as the first gate. Its length was 50 cubits and its width 25 cubits. Its windows and those of its archways also its palm trees had the same measurements as the gateway facing east. It was ascended by 7 steps, and its archway was in front of it. A gate of the inner court was opposite the northern gateway, just as the eastern gateway, and he measured from gateway to gateway 100 cubits. After that, he brought me towards the south, and there was a gateway was facing south, and he measured its gate posts and archways according to the same measurements. There were windows in it, and in its archways all around like those windows. and its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. 7 steps led up to it, and its archway was in front of them. And it had palm trees on its gateposts, one on this side and one on that side. There was also a gateway on the inner court facing south, and he measured from gateway to gateway towards the south 100 cubits. Then he brought me to the inner court through a southern gateway. He measured the southern gateway according to those same measurements. Also, its gate chambers, its gateposts, and its archways were according to the same measurements. There were windows in it and in its archways all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. There were archways all around, 25 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. Its archways faced the outer court. Palm trees were on its gateposts, and going up to it were 8 steps. And he brought me into the inner court facing east. He measured the gateway according to the same measurements, and its gate chambers, its gate posts, and its archways were according to these same measurements. And there were windows in it, and in its archways all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its archways faced the outer court, and palm trees were on its gateposts on this side and on that side. And going up to it were 8 steps. Then he brought me to the north gateway and measured it according to these same measurements. Also, its gateposts, its chambers, its gateposts, and its archways. It had windows all around. Its length was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Its gateposts faced the outer court. Palm trees were on its gateposts on this side and on that side, and going up to it were 8 steps. There was a chamber and an entrance by the gateposts of the gateway, where they washed the burnt offering. In the vestibule of the gateway, there were 2 tables on this side and 2 tables on that side, on which to lay the burnt offering, the sin offering, and the trespass offering. At the outer court of the vestibule, as one goes up to the entrance of the northern gateway, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the vestibule of the gateway were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables were on that side, by which the side of the gateway 8 tables, on which they slaughtered the sacrifices. There were also 4 tables of hewn stone for the burnt offering, and 1 cubit and a half long, 1 cubit and a half wide, and 1 cubit high. On these they laid the instruments with which they slaughtered the burnt offering and the sacrifice. Inside were hooks, a handbreadth wide, fastened all around, and the flesh of the sacrifices was on the tables. Outside the inner gate were the chambers for the singers of the inner court, one facing south at the front, one facing south at the side of the northern gateway, and the other facing north at the side of the southern gateway. Then he said to me, "This chamber which faces south is for the priests who have charge of the temple. The chamber which faces north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, from the sons of Levi, who come near to the Lord to minister to him." And he measured the court, 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, 4 square. The altar was in front of the temple. Then he brought me to the vestibule of the temple and measured the doorposts of the vestibule, 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on that side. And the width of the gateway was 3 cubits on this side and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the vestibule was 20 cubits and the width 11 cubits. And by the steps which led up to it there were pillars by the doorposts, one on this side and another on that side. Chapter 41. Then he brought me into the sanctuary and measured the doorposts, 6 cubits wide on one side and 6 cubits wide on the other side, the width of the tabernacle. The width of the entryway was 10 cubits, and the side walls of the entrance were 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on the other side. And he measured its length, 40 cubits, and its width, 20 cubits. Also he went inside and measured the doorposts, 2 cubits, and the entrance 6 cubits high, and the width of the entrance, 7 cubits. He measured the length, 20 cubits, and the width, 20 cubits, beyond the sanctuary, and he said to me, "This is the most holy place." Next he measured the wall of the temple, 6 cubits. The width of each side chamber all around the temple was 4 cubits on every side. The side chambers were in 3 stories, one above the other, 30 chambers in each story. They rested on ledges which were for the side chambers all around, that they might be supported, but not fastened to the wall of the temple. As one went up from the story to story, the side chambers became wider all around because their supporting ledges in the wall of the temple ascended, like steps Therefore, the width of the structure increased as one went up from the lowest story to the highest story, all the way of the middle one. I also saw an elevation all around the temple. It was the foundation of the side chambers, a full rod, that is, 6 cubits high. The thickness of the outer wall of the side chambers was 5 cubits, and so also the remaining terrace by the palace, or by the place of the side chambers of the temple. And between it and the wall chambers was a width of 20 cubits all around, and the temple on every side. The doors of the side chamber opened on the entrance, one door towards the north and another towards the south, and the width of the terrace was 5 cubits all around. The building that faced the separate courtyard at its western end was 70 cubits wide. The wall of the building was 5 cubits thick all around, and its length 90 cubits. So he measured the temple 100 cubits long, and separating courtyard with the building and its walls was 100 cubits long. Also, the width of the eastern face of the temple, including the separating courtyard, was 100 cubits. He measured the length of the building behind it, facing the separating courtyard with its galleries on one side and on the other side, 100 cubits, as well as the inner temple and the porches of the court. Their doorposts and the beveled window frames and the galleries all around their 3 stories opposite the threshold were paneled with wood from the ground to the windows. The windows were covered from the space above the door even to the inner room, as well as the outside, and on every wall all around, inside and outside by measure. And it was made with cherubim and palm trees, a palm tree between cherub and cherub. Each cherub had 2 faces, so that the face of a man was towards the palm tree on one side, and the face of a young lion towards a palm tree on the other side. Thus it was made throughout the temple all around. From the floor to the space above the door and on the wall of the sanctuary, cherubim and palm trees were carved. The doorposts of the temple were square, as was the front of the sanctuary. Their appearance was similar. The altar was of wood, 3 cubits high, and its length 2 cubits. Its corners, its length, and its sides were of wood. And he said to me, "This is the temple that is before the Lord." The temple and the sanctuary had 2 doors. The doors had 2 panels apiece, 2 folding panels, 2 panels for one door, and 2 panels for the other door. Cherubim and palm trees were carved on the doors of the temple, just as they were carved on the walls. A wooden canopy was on the front of the vestibule outside. There were beveled window frames and palm trees on one side and on the other side, on the sides of the vestibule, also on the side chambers of the temple, and on the canopies. Chapter 42. Then he brought me out into the outer court, by way towards the north, and he brought me into the chamber, which was the opposite, separating the courtyard, and which was opposite the building facing the north. Facing the length, which was 100 cubits, the width was 50 cubits, was the north door. Opposite the inner room of 20 cubits, and opposite the pavement of the outer court, was a gallery against gallery in 3 stories. In front of the chambers, towards the inside, was a walk 10 cubits wide, at a distance of 1 cubit, and their doors faced north. Now the upper chambers were shorter, because the galleries took away space from them more than the lower and middle stories of the building, for they were in 3 stories, and did not have pillars like the pillars of the courts. Therefore the upper level was shortened more than the lower level and mid-levels from the ground up. And a wall which was outside ran parallel to the chambers at the front of the chambers towards the outer court. Its length was 50 cubits. The length of the chambers towards the outer court was 50 cubits, whereas that facing the temple was 100 cubits. At the lower chambers was an entrance on the east side, as one goes into them from the outer court. Also there were chambers in the thickness part of the wall of the court towards the east, opposite the separating courtyard and opposite the building. There was a walk in front of them also, and their appearance was like the chambers which were towards the north. They were as long and as wide as the others, and all their exits and entrances were according to plan, and corresponding to the doors of the chambers that were facing south as one enters them. There was a door in front of the walk, the way directly in front of the wall towards the east. Then he said to me, "The north chambers and the south chambers, which are opposite the separating courtyard, are the holy chambers where the priests who approach the Lord shall eat the most holy offerings. There they shall lay the most holy offerings, the grain offering, the sin offering, and the trespass offering, for the place is holy. When the priests enter them, they shall not go out of the holy chamber into the outer court, but there they shall leave their garments in which they minister, for they are holy. They shall put on other garments, then they may approach that which is for the people. Now, when he had finished measuring the inner temple, he brought me out through the gateway that faces towards the east and measured it all around. He measured the east side with the measuring rod, 500 rods by the measuring rod all around. He measured the north side, 500 rods by the measuring rod all around. He measured the south side, 500 rods by the measuring rod all around. He came around to the west side and measured it, 500 rods by measuring the rod. He measured it on the four sides. It had a wall all around, 500 cubits long and 500 cubits wide, to separate the holy areas from the common. So first, when I was reading this, seeing this really cool picture of this new temple and this new city, and even still, I'm not 100% positive, but I think this is the temple in the time of Jesus. I don't think this is the New Jerusalem. It seems like there are two different pictures. And the reason I don't think this is the New Jerusalem, and I'm not crazy versed in this, I don't know a ton about this, but if there is a place for sacrifices, well, that speaks much more to Jesus's time than the time after Jesus. So that, and I believe the New Jerusalem is going to be much, 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 much larger than what they're describing, if I understand my cubits right. So as I understand it, I think he's showing Ezekiel the rebuilding of the temple in Jesus' time. If I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comments. But I believe that's right. Either way, very cool to see this redemption of something that God had built and something that God let his people steward. And even though they failed, he is now allowing them to do that again. And then even beyond that, now that the temple and the Spirit dwells within us, very, very impressive to see something with this much structure, with this much measurement and detail and fine-tuning. And how much more so are we on the cellular level? And God created that. He allows himself to dwell in us. That's amazing. And allows us to be a steward of that. Very cool. Anyway, that's what I took away from today. As always, friends, thanks so much for joining. Have a great rest of your day, and see ya.